Hello there, friend. I'm glad you're here. My name's Adam, and in this series, there will be no loud noises or speaking, just dark and sinister themes. Go get that hot chockey and grab your favourite comfort blanket because it's time for me to read you some creepy stories. Starting off with a smaller story here. It's titled, My Wife Was Left in Shock. I consider myself to be an average guy. No special job or looks. The only thing that I'm significantly lucky for is my wife, Veronica. Her long brown hair, sun-kissed skin, and hazel eyes that gain the greatest compliments from sunlight. She's more than just her looks. Her personality is perfect, sweet, caring, empathetic, naive, and gullible. She's my greatest companion. Well, she was. Things started to go not as I had planned when she started to dig into my past. Her curiosity and long-term grief were a fatal mix. She found out that I had an ex-wife. She kept asking questions and was upset that I never informed her about any past marriages. I eventually snapped on her during an argument and told her the name of my ex-wife, Alicia. I felt relieved for a while because she stopped pestering me. I thought she was done with being obsessed with Alicia. My hopes were quickly killed off when I came home one day and saw her staring at a photo of the chick. Tears were pouring out of her eyes as her face was covered in red. Her body was shaking as her trembling hands held the photo. She then started whimpering as she told me that Alicia was the missing best friend she always talked about. It immediately made sense to me. Her stories and descriptions always matched her. I still found it weird that they were supposedly so close. Alicia never mentioned anything about Veronica to me. I remember how it started to feel hilarious. The funniest part is when I took her to the basement and let her see her deceased friend. She looked stunned at first, and then was full of cheer. She turned to me and kissed me more passionately than I've ever been. She confessed that she's known for a long time that I was the reason as to why her best friend was missing. Her tears, fear, all of it was fake. She did it all so I would admit to her what I did. Somehow, it made her love me even more. Yeah, well, that was definitely a story. Short, but there's an unexpected end to the story, that's for sure. While the narrator was the murderer, I think that's creepy enough, but it sounds like Alicia, the dead one, was actually best friends to someone who also wanted her dead. After all, why would she want to kiss this guy so much after finding her dead best friend in the basement? I don't know, but there we have it. Clearly there's some deeper plot going on underneath that, and it's whew. Anyway, let's move on. While we're on the topic of weird, messed up love stories, allow me to take us to the next one. This one is titled The Man of My Dreams. Well, I hate to admit it, but I think there's something wrong. See, I've been having dreams lately. Dreams every single night about a guy I've never seen in real life. However, he looked just like a dream, like the most handsome man ever. Initially, I thought that it was just some regular dream. No true meaning or danger, just a meaningless dream. As each night went by, the dreams felt longer and longer, even more intimate. No details really changed though. His name stayed the same, Mario. No feature ever changed. the same diamond blue eyes, the same midnight black hair, the same ghostly pale skin. He would bring up past conversations that we had in other dreams. He'd repeat certain phrases. He had his own signature catchphrases and such. His voice never changed. At first, we were friends, and then it started to progress throughout my dreams. When we'd hold hands or kiss, it felt real. I felt the touch and the sensation. I started to realize that this wasn't normal, but I didn't mind. I haven't had a relationship in a long time, and this guy made me feel special. The way he'd hug me, intertwine our fingers, kiss my lips, twirl my hair, and say my name in the sweetest tone. Oh, the way he said Marina was enough to make a sane lady melt. I eventually got very attached to him. I would make myself sleep as much as possible. I wanted to be with him, and only him. He's the man of my dreams, or so I thought. A couple nights ago, he started to act different. He started showing me knives and saying that he wants to show me how he died. He would ramble about how, in order for us to be together forever, I'll have to suffer. He would start describing death and pain. He would romanticize agony. His beauty started to transform into rotting flesh. He was no longer dreamy. He had transformed into a nightmare. Last night, his rotting lips traced mine and left a taste of death in my mouth. He told me that I need to die. He wanted to kill me with the large kitchen knife that his hands were holding. He said I'll never wake up again and that we'd be together for an eternity. When I told him no, he became very hostile and sliced my arm. I was then filled with gratitude as I woke up screaming. I was grateful that I didn't die. The only bad part of waking up is that I had a mess to clean up and a lot of pain in my arm. The cut in my nightmare was on my body in reality. What do I do? If I go to sleep again, I might not wake up. If I tell someone, they might call me crazy. Will I ever sleep again? Ugh, well, this story turns sour fast. I mean, you could, I want to just say, well, luckily it's just a dream, but clearly for this person, it was becoming reality too, day by day, dream by dream. I don't know what you do in this situation, fictional or not, of course. But I think, if you've had your arm sliced off, you should probably go and get some help, and I think that's probably evidence enough to get at least someone believing in your crazy stories about your dreams becoming reality. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about this story? This next story is certainly a creepy one. It's titled, "Can Anybody Tell Me What This Could Be?" It was a few years ago. I'm in my later teens now, but I was about 10 when this all happened. Growing up, my parents had always been superstitious and believers of the paranormal. My father especially would tell me scary stories that he had experienced firsthand. He always warned me not to mess around with the unknown. When I was 10, my father passed away due to a road accident. We flew to a different state and stayed there for about a week because that's where his memorial was being held. My aunt, Misty, was a very spiritual person. She believed in all types of stuff, and we saw her during the week of the memorial. I really loved and looked up to her, so I stuck around her a lot. We were outside one night talking with some of her cousins, and she started talking about my father and how he was always able to see things, and how my grandparents thought he was always making up stories. It was about 2 or 3 days later, and she was looking through old photos of him. In brackets, he had been raced dirt bikes when he was younger, which I'm guessing means he used to race dirt bikes as a kid. And in a picture of this, my grandmother had taken of him, there was a strange face in the helmet's reflection. My aunt kind of freaked out, and I understand why. I also think it was super weird that the road accident my father died from was when he was on a dirt bike. Anyways, it wasn't spoken about after that, and the rest of the week went by quickly. When me and my mum were driving back home from the airport, to the right of the road, I saw this. I saw this thing. I don't even know what it was, or what to call it. A skinwalker? I have no clue. It wasn't a deer, it was all skin, and it was walking only on two legs, but they were bent weirdly in the back. I still fully remember what it looked like exactly to this day. It horrifies me, even now. It was close to a tree line. Its eyes glowed. It wasn't looking at our direction though, it was facing the trees. It had no hair or clothes. It couldn't have been a person. I froze. It felt like the air had been knocked out of my chest. I could feel my heartbeat in every part of my body, and it was fast. I've had scary situations where I've been hurt and hospitalized, but the fear I felt in that moment is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. I didn't freak out or say anything to my mum. It just felt like I couldn't talk. I just sat there, frozen. I couldn't believe what I saw. I tried to tell myself it was just a deer, but deep down, I know it couldn't have been. When we got home, I told my mum what I saw. I thought she believed in that kind of stuff. She told me that what I saw was probably a deer. Months later, I'm about to fall asleep, and I hear tapping on my window. I run to my mum's bedroom to wake and begin to cry to her that there's something by my window. She brushes it off again and just lets me sleep with her. In the morning, I get angry with her because she never seems to believe me with these kinds of things. My stepdad was leaving for work when he comes back inside with a serious look on his face and tells my mum that my window screen was torn off my window when he walked outside. After that, my mum made me sleep in her room because she was kind of creeped out about it. I don't know if there's something that got passed from my father to me or what it was. Things have been better since I moved 4 years ago, but sometimes I see things out of the corner of my eye, and I'm still really spooked. I was hoping someone might be able to offer an explanation of some sort. The OP replied with, "Hey, sorry, reading it back, I can see that I didn't really elaborate on that, and that there were some spelling errors, so I apologise for that. I'm currently trying to find the photo right now so that I can attach it. The photo was right after Christmas, and my dad was posing with a new helmet and dirt bike he had got. The living room's empty, and my grandmother was taking a photo, and on the side of his helmet there was a distorted face of what looked like a man. It's kind of hard to explain, which is why I'm searching for the photo to show you." That's the end of this thread. I think it's particularly creepy because it feels like the person who wrote this isn't trying to oversell it. They really are just speaking from their experience and leaving it up to us to really take what we want from it and believe it or not believe it. It's not too pushy, but I find it kind of scary that perhaps this photo does exist with this strange face in it, and who knows, maybe that family is just sensitive to paranormal things and they just are wired that way, or maybe, who knows, maybe there is something real out there that's haunting that family, haunting that son. It's hard to say. Let's move on. The next story I have here for you is certainly an interesting one. The title reads, "I let the black-eyed kids into my car." This story happened when I used to drive for a ride-sharing app a few years ago. The service had just started in our city, so I decided to give it a go, trying to beat the trend and make a bit of money on the side. I usually drove at night after my main job. On this night, I had ended up in a Walmart. I liked this location as it was one of those super shopping centre complexes, far from everything but a highway and fields. It was a good spot to catch an employee who didn't have a ride, or those late night bus commuters who were tired of waiting for a bus that never seemed to show up. I usually went in to do some shopping, and then waited in my car for the app to notify me of a new fare. On this particular evening, my shift started like any other. I grabbed a few things in the store before it closed, and then waited in my car, scrolling on my phone. Waiting until the notification for a ride popped up, which did not take long. I accepted it as usual. The rider was already in the area, so I went back on my phone, waiting for the client, assuming they were on their way out of the supermarket. A few moments later, a tap on my window caught my attention, with a voice saying, "Can we come in?" Without lifting my eyes from my phone, I answered, assuming it was my rideshare, "Yeah, get in, we'll get going." I propped up my phone on its stand and opened the GPS in the car share app. I heard the doors open as whoever I thought ordered the ride shuffled in. Opening the app just yielded a loading circle, but thinking it would load and wanting to save time, I'd already started driving out of the lot before I realised that something was off. The back seat was silent, making me realise the radio was off. The only noise in the cabin was the low rumble of the tyres as I drove the deserted streets. A bit uneasy with the awkward silence, I broke the silence. The app seems to be having trouble loading. It should work in a little bit. "It won't," my passenger answered. The voice of what seemed to be a child took me by surprise, feeling a shiver run down my spine, honestly. As I moved, starting to turn around, I felt a pressure deep in my guts telling me to stop. Cold sweat started to form on my forehead, and my hands started to get clammy. Something in my gut was screaming at me to keep my eyes on the road, that if I turned around, something bad was going to happen. "We will tell you where to go," it spoke again in its weird, distorted, double voice. It's like I could hear it in my head as well as with my ears. I swallowed dryly, adjusting the rearview mirror to catch a glimpse of my passenger. From the mirror reflection, I could see one of the children in my back seat. The kid was about 10 years old, with dirty, blonde hair and pale skin. I noticed a second, smaller child who sat next to my passenger. They talked to each other, but their smaller frame and features were hidden in the angle of my mirror. My gaze moved to meet the first child, the pit in my stomach growing deeper as I felt the cold sweat trickle down my forehead. Their eyes were black. No sclera, no iris, no pupil, just deep, dark globes, reflecting the abyss in the soft light of the street lamps passing by. I had read the stories, heard about the creepypastas. I remembered the legends, the late nights on no sleep forums and true scary stories, the YouTube videos and podcasts of true accounts and found footage. Honestly, I never really believed any of it. Until now. With that child staring back at me with these black, bald eyes through the reflection of my rearview mirror, I felt my heart rate go up, eyes darting from the mirror to the road. Those eyes never observed me through the reflection. The air felt heavy in the car. Every shuffle or movement seemed amplified by the lack of music. "Turn left," the voice cut the tension, ringing in my head as if it were in my ear, almost making me jump out of my skin. Yet I stayed still, putting my blinker, the rhythmic click, now taking the place of the silence. We were in the middle of nowhere, the fields covered in the shadows. Only a few street lamps every few meters lighting the road. In the reflection, the kid smiled. Just this ever-closed lip smile in silence with those dark, abyss-like eyes fixated on me. Every fibre of my body was telling me I was in danger. If I turned around, I would die. The other kid shuffled next to the other one. I was still only able to discern its shoulder. Two predators stood silently smiling in my back seat. Two monsters I had allowed inside. The first rule was that they had to be let inside, and I had, like an idiot, let them in without ever looking up. I don't know how long I drove like this. Dread consumed me. The beating of the heart in my chest felt close to bursting out of my chest. My hands felt tired from holding the steering wheel so tightly. My knuckles had turned white from gripping the plastic until I felt pins and needles in the tips of my fingers. Right, the voice rang in my ear and mind at the same time again, as we arrived at an intersection on the road. The only light was the red blinking light from the stop sign. I exhaled as my hand slid down the steering wheel to put on my blinker. I never took my eyes off those dark, beady eyes reflected in my rearview mirror. I could tell his gaze followed my hand, the shades of black moving under the dull red hue of the blinking red stoplight. I felt a shiver go through my spine as I felt the creature in my back seat waiting for me to go. We kept moving on the empty road until the fields made way to houses, rows and rows of identical houses. Some were lit and some were pitch dark. The whole neighbourhood seemed like a new development that was not yet lived in. Left. I put my blinker. The car turned, and the sound of the tyres rubbing on the road. I felt it pass from paved to gravel. I jumped as the car shook under the unfinished road. The child's smile turned to a toothy grin. I truly thought that I was going to die, here and there. My heart stopped, and my eyes were glued to the road. I could feel his gaze and smile boring through my soul. Stop! I stopped the car. It was the end of the road. My light on two cinder blocks, more fields on the dark horizon. To my right stood the last house on the block. I could tell the door to the house was open, and a tall figure stood at the doorway. I couldn't discern any features. They seemed only like a tall shadow in the lit doorway. We are here, thank you. That voice rang in my head again as the child spoke. I heard the car door open, and my two passengers shuffled out of my car. I could finally breathe. I forced myself to look to my right as the kids walked to the figure in the doorway. One of the kids turned, smiling at me and waving. I could still see their cold, black eyes. Then things went blurry. My ears started ringing, and then everything went black. I woke up to the sound of tapping on my window. A light blinded me as I heard someone say, "Roll down your window." It was the security guard of the Walmart parking lot. I looked around, confused. I was back where I started, with no memory of how I'd gotten back. The guard pointed his flashlight at me, asking if I was okay and if he needed to call the cops or an ambulance. Still confused and dazed, I just kind of slowly drove off, ignoring the guard, unsure of what I just experienced. Was it even real? Weeks later, I still couldn't forget the road, so I drove back to that specific Walmart, unsure of what I would find, but I needed to look for answers. I stopped at the entrance, next to the missing persons bulletin board. Stapled in the back of the board, on faded black and white ink, an image of a missing child caught my eye. It was the one I drove a few nights back. It was unmistakable, the same child. But the poster stated that they had been missing for up to 10 years now. And that is the end of the story. Wow. I mean, a longer-winded one, but I think that's worth the read because it's so gradual, the build-up, and I think it fits it perfectly, you know. This guy not knowing whether he dreamt this encounter or not, whether he somehow got back to the Walmart car park without knowing or not knowing whether it was a dream. I think the child technically had been missing for 10 years. Definitely adds a certain twist to the story of could this person be involved in that missing case 10 years ago? Could he be related? What's the meaning behind the black eyes? Why is it a child with features, dark blonde hair, dirty blonde hair, and yet dark black eyes. It's very mysterious, but a very good story. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed these stories. They were certainly dark and sinister. Hopefully, they haven't disturbed you too much, and they've perhaps inspired you to dabble, I would say, into your more paranormal feelings that you might feel every so often, perhaps on a daily basis. Depends how creepy of a place you live in, I suppose, or how creepy your family line is, or whatever. But yeah, these are some stories. This has been episode 1, and I hope you've enjoyed. It's generally speaking a much shorter episode. This one, I'm just giving everything a go, and fingers crossed it's not too bad. But thank you for listening. If you made it this far, it honestly means a lot. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, what I could improve on. Like I said, longer episodes hopefully in the future. But thank you for listening. Thank you.